Many years before the Clone Wars and the rise of the Empire, the Jedi Master Mace Windu was sent on a diplomatic mission to the planet Tatooine. The rumors reaching the Jedi Council indicated that an unusual child had been born there, a girl with a connection to the Force so strong it drew attention even from the least experienced sensitives. Tatooine, a planet dominated by crime lords and slavery, wasn't part of the Republic, making direct intervention difficult. Yet something in that information touched Master Windu deeply, and he was tasked with investigating personally. Upon arriving on the planet, disguised and guided only by his intuition, Mace found the little girl in a slave market in Mos Espa. She was barely 1 year old, with bright eyes and a gaze that seemed to see destiny itself. Even in her innocence, Mace felt an impressive presence in the Force. The child had been marked as property and would soon be sold. Without hesitation, the Jedi freed the girl using his diplomatic gifts and a good dose of brute force arguments. When they returned to Coruscant, the girl's presence was met with astonishment by the Jedi Council. Master Yoda himself plunged into deep meditation to understand what the Force was trying to reveal. Strong in her, the Force is great destiny, I sense, he murmured in his quietest moments. After many nights of reflection, Yoda revealed to the Council he'd had a vision. The child would give birth to the Chosen One. However, he warned this truth should never be told to her. If she knows, grow in her heart, pride and doubt may. Shmi Skywalker grew up and was trained in the Jedi Temple with unusual attention. While other children shared masters and experiences, Shmi was always closely watched by the greatest names of the Order. Her connection to the Force was instinctive, flowing with ease and grace. Even the most complex tasks seemed simple for her. Her curiosity was vast, but her spirit was calm and centered, something that pleased the wisest masters. Mace Windu decided personally to take her as his Padawan. This was rare. Few High Council masters took Padawans, but Windu felt there was something special in Shmi he needed to help shape. She learned from him not just Jedi discipline but also a rare combat style, Vapad, a dangerous path that flirted with the dark side's energy by channeling intense emotions into pure technique and movement. With great care, he initiated Shmi into this style, aware of the risks involved. Vapad training required Shmi to face her inner limits. The difference was that, unlike other users, she seemed to fear no darkness. Instead of feeding it, she understood it and let it flow through her like a current, without clinging to it. Mace watched with pride and caution. "You don't need to fight what you feel," he told her. "But you must learn not to become what you feel." Shmi absorbed each lesson with maturity and serene joy that made her unique among Padawans. Over the years, Shmi participated in countless missions with Mace Windu, from diplomatic negotiations to armed conflicts on distant planets. She always demonstrated courage, empathy, and extraordinary abilities. She was beloved by the oppressed peoples she helped and respected even by skeptical allies. Her natural compassion was her strength. Her combat skills, her defense. She became a Jedi known for her inner light, but also for her strength in intense battles where Vapad shone like a lethal dance. When she was about to turn 30, after returning from a mission in the Outer Rim system, something strange began happening. Shmi started experiencing strong nausea, dizziness, and an unusual disturbance in her body. Concerned, she sought the Jedi Temple healers. After several exams, the conclusion was surprising. She was pregnant. Yet there was no record of any relationship or intimate contact. Not even a touch. It was as if the pregnancy had simply appeared. The news shocked the Council. Many remembered Yoda's words decades earlier, but the old master remained silent for a long time, until one day he spoke to the other masters. An ancient vision, this is, the mother of the Chosen One, Shmi Skywalker, has become. The decision was to protect both child and mother. Shmi was temporarily removed from missions but remained in the temple, where she received care and support from masters like Qui-Gon Jinn, one of her best friends since arriving at the temple as a baby. They had grown up together, learned techniques together, and both had been trained by Jedi Council masters. Finally, on a quiet day in Coruscant, the child was born. It was a calm delivery, assisted by medical droids and Force-sensitive masters. When Shmi first held the boy in her arms, a wave of energy swept through the entire temple. The kyber crystals themselves vibrated in tune with that new life. The baby was named Anakin Skywalker, and thus, fatherless, generated only by the will of the Force, was born the one ancient prophets had foretold as the Chosen One. Though Anakin Skywalker's arrival was marked by signs in the Force and prophetic visions, the Jedi Council couldn't reach unanimity about his origin. There was certain respect and reverence for what seemed a miracle, but behind temple doors, many masters whispered quietly. The idea that a Jedi could conceive a child solely by the Force's will was too difficult to accept, even for the most sensitive. The distrust wasn't open, but hung in the air like a thin mist. Even with medical exams and investigations showing no physical contact or romantic relationship, the discomfort remained, and few masters showed courage to speak about it clearly. One of them, however, spoke, and loudly. Count Dooku, then still a Jedi High Council member, was the most critical of the situation. From the start, he made clear he didn't believe the narrative presented by Shmi and her supporters. To Dooku, something dark surrounded Anakin's birth, something the Jedi Order was refusing to see. He went further. He accused his former Padawan, Qui-Gon Jinn, of being the child's true father, knowing they had been close friends since childhood and had grown too close to each other. He said both had broken the Order's vows and were now trying to hide it under a cloak of mysticism. The accusation fell like a bomb on the temple. Qui-Gon firmly denied it, but Dooku seemed increasingly convinced of his own theory. Not that he bore anger toward his former Padawan, but because he truly believed it. The tension between Dooku and the Council grew over months. The Count's disillusionment wasn't limited to Anakin's birth. For years he'd been questioning the Republic's decisions and the Jedi Order's inertia toward the corruption growing in the Senate. Shmi's case was just the trigger. In a tense meeting where not even Mace Windu could dissuade him, Dooku declared he would leave the Council, and then the Order itself. His final words were full of bitterness. The Force is being used as a veil to hide human mistakes. This is not the Jedi way. His departure left deep wounds, especially in Qui-Gon, who had considered the Count a father. Shmi felt the impact like a devastating wave. Though she'd done nothing but follow the Order's guidance, she began being watched with uncomfortable caution. The looks, whispered words, veiled comments, all made her feel isolated within the very temple where she'd been raised. Gradually, anguish grew in her chest. With Anakin still a baby in her arms, she began thinking of leaving them all behind. Her destiny seemed to lie elsewhere. She dreamed of a distant place, far from judgment and accusations, and a peaceful hidden world where perhaps she could raise her son in peace. However, Qui-Gon Jinn wouldn't let her make that rash decision. In a long emotional conversation in the temple gardens, he begged her to stay. "You were chosen for something greater, Shmi. You can't run from this. Neither you nor him." His words were firm but filled with affection. Shmi, with tearful eyes, asked if she'd ever know peace, and Qui-Gon, holding her hand, replied, "Peace isn't in where you live. It's in the mission you accept." With time, she relented. She remained in the Jedi Temple, now as both mother and mentor. And Anakin grew under the Force's shadow, surrounded by masters, and his mother's watchful eyes. The Skywalker boy soon began showing signs of unusual talent. His reflexes were quick, his Force sensitivity evident even before learning to speak. The most experienced masters were amazed by his presence. It was as if the Force bent slightly around him, flowing naturally. Even Yoda, ever cautious, admitted in a council session that Anakin would quickly surpass him. Legends about the Chosen One began resurfacing more strongly in the temple halls, and even the most skeptical could no longer deny there was something special about that child. The Jedi Order, still divided between doubt and wonder, decided to monitor Anakin's growth with redoubled care. Shmi, now more serene, began developing her own training method for her son. She combined traditional Jedi precepts with the hardest lessons she'd learned from Mace Windu, including the first steps in Vapad style. Anakin, still small, already demonstrated mastery of techniques that would take other Padawans years to learn. The confidence everyone placed in him grew, and with it, something more silent. Pride. A pride that began taking root in the heart of a boy growing up as the center of the galaxy's hopes. Time passed and news came of Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi's deaths, bringing extreme pain to Shmi's heart. Mace Windu, equally devastated, vowed to find who had done this. So together they embarked on a silent mission, far from the Council's knowledge. A full year of clues, travels, and long sessions with informants led the two to a forgotten planet on the galaxy's edges. There, in a cave wrapped in darkness, they found an ancient body already deteriorating but still clearly recognizable. The red skin, horns, bared teeth. It was Darth Maul, or, as Qui-Gon had described before dying, the sinister tattooed one with yellow eyes. The body was cut in half. If that Sith had truly been destroyed there, then doubt hovered like a blade over both their chests. Who, then, had killed Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's murderer? The wound they'd received was clean, precise, the work of an experienced warrior with full mastery of the Force. The mission became even more dangerous. The Force seemed restless, as if trying to warn of something that couldn't be put into words. It was the omen of a new cycle of darkness. Mace and Shmi's investigations continued discreetly. Gradually, names began emerging. Senators hiding actions, movements of former Jedi members. Everything led to one central figure, Count Dooku. When they found him, he was secluded in a fortress in Sereno's mountains. He received the two coldly. He didn't seem the same man who'd once occupied a seat on the Jedi High Council. His eyes were darker, his presence heavier. Dooku didn't evade. He admitted he was the one who killed Darth Maul. He said it was for revenge for Qui-Gon, his former Padawan with whom he hadn't had time to make peace. But how he said it was loaded with arrogance, as if it were a trophy. Mace noticed something wrong there. This wasn't just a master's pain over losing an apprentice. It was something darker. Dooku spoke with disdain about the Jedi, as if they were just a level he needed to climb. And he exaggeratedly praised Chancellor Palpatine's power. "He's the only one who can restore order to the galaxy," he said with conviction. "You still live trapped in the Jedi balance illusion. But Palpatine understands. He sees beyond." Shmi exchanged a look with Mace. There was something about it that made her stomach churn. An echo of the dark side. A feeling that this man, once so noble, was now walking toward an abyss with no return. Even so, Dooku didn't reveal himself as a Sith. He claimed to be just a realist, a reformer. But the Force's whispers said otherwise. Mace and Shmi left that encounter without confronting him directly, but knowing something terrible was forming. "He's no longer the Jedi we knew," said Mace. Dooku's influence among senators was growing, and his direct contact with Palpatine made him a dangerous link between two worlds. Coruscant was no longer the galaxy's safe heart. It was becoming the stage for something none of them could yet fully comprehend. Shmi was especially worried. Dooku had known Anakin's story from the beginning, and without saying so, she felt he harbored some kind of grudge against her son. Mace warned her. From now on, everything around Dooku must be treated with extreme caution. He left the Order, but didn't cease being a Jedi Master. And that makes him even more dangerous. With this certainty in their hearts, the two returned to the Jedi Temple, where something awaited them. Something that, for an instant, brought light amid the approaching darkness. Anakin. Then the boy grew and was no longer a child, now a teenager with a firm gaze and surprising powers. Tall, strong, with evident confidence. The other Padawans looked at him with respect and some envy. His fame as the Chosen One only grew, and he began becoming not just a growing legend but also a disconcerting presence among other Jedi. Shmi hugged him tightly. She felt the Force pulsing in him like a storm about to explode. Mace Windu, in turn, watched him with redoubled attention, not just for what the boy might become, but for who might try to take him for themselves. The years passed like comets crossing the galaxy. Anakin Skywalker, now a skilled young man, carried out missions alongside his mother, Shmi, with mastery. The duo was admired by many and feared by some. Wherever they went, There was a trail of justice and courage. The Force flowed powerfully between them, and the Skywalker name began carrying weight within the Senate and Jedi Temple. Palpatine, with his gaze hidden behind diplomatic smiles and gestures, watched each step of the boy and his mother attentively. He knew there was something rare in that lineage. Gifts were sent frequently, rarities from the system's outer reaches that only a high-ranking politician could obtain. Ancient books, amulets, rare pieces of Sith technology. Palpatine said they were just gestures of admiration, but Shmi always found his messages strange. Meetings were requested, usually behind closed doors. In these conversations, the Chancellor spoke little about politics and much about potential, destiny, and true power. Anakin, still young and curious, listened attentively. Shmi, ever vigilant, was suspicious. Something in the Chancellor's aura seemed wrong, like a whisper from the dark side. Meanwhile, Count Dooku, now known as Darth Tyrannus, was consolidating as Palpatine's new apprentice. But the master himself began doubting his pupil. Dooku was powerful, articulate, but lacked something, a deep bond with the Force that transcended technique and doctrine. Palpatine had visions of power that would come from pain, loss, passion. Power Dooku could never access. It was in the Skywalkers that he saw the answer. Therefore, subtly, he began turning the Jedi against Dooku. He sowed doubts, exposed manipulated truths, and gradually made the Order distrust the Count. Tension exploded in a devastating war in the outer systems. Troops led by Dooku attacked Republic lines directly. Mace Windu, along with Shmi and Anakin, led the offensive against him on a desolate planet. The confrontation was brutal. At the battle's peak, Dooku showed all his fury. With a fierce strike, he ran Mace Windu through, killing the Jedi Master before everyone. Mace's strike against Dooku would have been with extreme weight and force, but the Count was subtle and with an extremely precise thrust, pierced the Master's chest. Shmi screamed, and in that moment the Count made her fly and crash against the installation's walls after being struck by Dooku's pure power lightning. Anakin ran to defend his mother's body, but Dooku faced him without hesitation. With cruel precision, he severed young Skywalker's right arm, who fell unconscious, overcome by pain. With her son wounded and her master dead, she used her saber to open a hole in the ground and escaped with her son. A few days later, without telling anyone, she set out for revenge. She tracked Dooku for weeks, alone, guided only by rage and the echo of what she'd lost. When she finally found him, she realized she wasn't just facing the traitor Count. Palpatine, or rather Darth Sidious, was with him. The two awaited her arrival as if everything had been planned. "You've been an obstacle for too long," Sidious said coldly. Shmi fought with all the power she possessed, but she was at a disadvantage. Shmi Skywalker's final battle was silent and quick, as if the Force already knew the outcome. When Dooku struck her with the lightsaber, there was no blood, no scream, just light. Her body disappeared before them, just as Ben Kenobi's would years later. The silence that followed was almost sacred. Palpatine, for a moment, said nothing, but then, with a slight smile, turned to Dooku. "She's gone. Now he's free." It was the plan's next step. Anakin, alone, vulnerable, emotionally broken, ready to be shaped. With honors paid at the Jedi Temple and the Order devastated by losses, Chancellor Palpatine approached Anakin. The boy, now a teenager with a mechanical arm, remained silent, distant, devastated by his mother's and master's loss. Anger and desire for vengeance were stamped on his face. Palpatine used soft words. He spoke of strength, overcoming, how pain could be transformed into power. "Your mother was strong, but you'll be even stronger," he said. "She always believed in you. I believe too." And so, the great manipulator began planting his seeds. Anakin Skywalker was about 20 years old, and the pain of his mother's death never diminished. It only transformed into an intense flame of hatred. Grief turned to anger, and anger became fuel. He trained without rest, each strike faster, each movement more brutal. His face, once curious and dreamy, now lived in shadows. He wanted no peace, No comfort. He wanted vengeance. He wanted to see Count Dooku pay for every drop of suffering he'd caused. Anakin's gaze began changing, hardening, and Palpatine noted this with silent pleasure. The Chancellor approached him with a cloak of kindness, said he understood his pain, that the Jedi Council was limited, blind, cowardly. "They'll never bring you justice," he whispered, "but I can. I can give you enough power to do what's needed." And Anakin, increasingly distant from the Order, began trusting him. Palpatine fed his thirst for justice with poison, disguised as empathy. Promised to show him Force secrets the Jedi forbade. Promised to give him the destiny the entire galaxy awaited from him. He just needed to follow the right path. The Chancellor's path. But not all in Anakin was lost. Sometimes, during sleep or in silence after training, he heard a voice whispering. A sweet, firm, maternal voice. It said he needed to calm himself, that he shouldn't surrender to hatred. Anakin heard but didn't obey. He thought he was going mad. "I'm hearing things," he told himself, but the anger was stronger. The void Shmi left was filled with the rawest anger, and Palpatine smiled seeing him sink. Then came the moment the Chancellor had awaited. Pretending to offer a chance at redemption, Palpatine sent Anakin on a special mission, claiming Dooku was hiding on an isolated planet. The place was desert, dark, and no other Jedi was around. There, as in a dark theater set by his master, they stood face to face. Anakin Skywalker and Count Dooku. The duel began without words. Sabers ignited. Lightning came from Dooku's hands, and Anakin spun, dodged, absorbed the lightning with his saber, and leaped to attack wildly. Skywalker's fury overflowed, his screams echoing among the rocks. He didn't want to fight, he wanted to destroy. "I hate you," Anakin screamed, eyes filled with fury, while Dooku tried resisting with elegance and experience. But something was different. Anakin, trained in Vapad style, the one that embraced the dark side to fight it, was breaking limits. His strikes were heavy, unpredictable, driven by ancestral rage. The old Count tried responding with precision, but Vapad pressured him. Strike after strike, Anakin cornered him. A devastating spin, and then both of Dooku's hands were severed. The red saber fell to the ground, spinning slowly. Dooku fell to his knees, defeated, panting, defenseless. And there, Palpatine emerged, hidden in shadows but with a firm, venomous voice. "Finish him, now." Anakin breathed heavily, saber ignited, trembling. "He killed your mother. He killed your masters. He's evil. He deserves no mercy. Kill him, Anakin. Bring justice." The young warrior looked into the Count's eyes, who, wounded and strengthless, just stared at the ground. But in that moment, that voice grew louder, clearer. "Anakin, calm yourself, son. You're better than this." It was Shmi, not a memory echo but a real presence, wrapped in the Force. She was there. He felt warmth, felt light. His hands trembled. The saber began wavering. Palpatine, on the other side, began growing impatient. "What are you waiting for? He deserves to die." But Anakin's gaze rose. His eyes, filled with fury moments before, were now glistening. The sound of heavy breathing silenced. For the first time in years, he felt something beyond hatred. He felt love. He felt longing. He felt his mother, and it broke him inside. Anakin looked at Count Dooku kneeling, defenseless, awaiting final judgment. The blue saber trembled in his hand, and his mother's voice whispered, "You're no killer, my son. Your strength lies in compassion." For the first time in so long, he listened. He deactivated the saber. Palpatine advanced, furious. Without hesitation, he pulled a hidden saber from his cloak, deep red, and with a dry strike, took Dooku's head. The body fell. Anakin recoiled, horrified. He'd witnessed the truth hidden behind the Chancellor's cloak. The sound of the red saber echoed like a sentence. Anakin stared at it, paralyzed, while reality crumbled around him. Palpatine was the Sith Master, the galaxy's true enemy. You had the chance to show power, "And you failed," he said coldly, spinning the saber. Anakin activated his, almost reflexively, but his heart was divided between fear and outrage. He'd already given too much to anger, but now he had a greater reason to resist. His mother's voice still whispered, firmer, more present. The fight began brutally. Sidious attacked with refined movements, precise, like someone who'd faced hundreds of opponents. His strikes seemed impossible to predict. Anakin was strong, fast, and full of energy, but his mind was unstable, confused, oscillating between light and darkness. The blue saber clashed against red in incandescent sparks, but with each attack, Sidious laughed. He didn't want to kill Anakin, he wanted to break him, corrupt him. "You're powerful, but you're nothing without me. Join the true force. Become my apprentice." Anakin fell to his knees, panting, the saber almost slipping from his hands. His body ached, his soul weighed. Maybe I really don't stand a chance, he thought. But then, Shmi's voice returned stronger, nearer. "Get up, Anakin. I'm with you. The Force is with you." He closed his eyes. The pain lessened. The rage ceased. This time he fought not for vengeance, but for love. The Force flowed through him purely. He rose, guided by his mother's words, as if she stood beside him. The tide turned. Anakin began anticipating Sidious's strikes, dodging lightly and counterattacking precisely. It was as if his movements were being guided. Shmi, now a living part of the Force, had fully connected with her son. "Jump now," and he jumped. "Attack the leg," and he struck. Sidious retreated, incredulous. He'd never imagined Anakin could achieve such harmony. Then, in a swift spin, Anakin cornered him. A single strike cut the jaw of the one who only spoke to manipulate and lie. Sidious screamed voicelessly, eyes wide in pure desperation. He tried retreating, but Anakin was already light in motion. The one who ruled through fear now trembled before truth. And then, guided by the Force and his mother's spirit, Anakin advanced. With both hands firm on the saber, he drove the blade into the enemy's chest. It was as if two united souls, mother and son, had pierced the heart of darkness. Palpatine's body fell slowly, soundless. The wind blew. Anakin remained motionless, feeling a strange peace take hold. It wasn't joy nor victory, it was liberation. The Force enveloped him, and for a moment, he saw Shmi's face smiling before him, illuminated, serene. "You did what was right, my son. I'll always be with you." And then she was gone. Anakin fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. He had won, not with hate, but with love.